it to lesser draw calls. And then don't use lighting. If you can, use a matcap shader just to simulate fake lighting. Turn off post-processing, as that can be very heavy because you're running operations on every pixels. Use mobile-friendly shaders if you can. Use level of detail for geometries that can vary in distance, so you can have lower quality meshes for objects that are far away. And like we saw before in the overdraw example, turn on occlusion culling if needed, and reduce texture size. And there's a lot more to it, so we'll maybe cover that in a future webinar. One thing you could do to also improve the performance is to include a package called adaptive performance. So adaptive performance is something you can get from the package manager, but it's also conveniently available in the project settings in the newer versions of Unity. So you can enable this to have your game automatically drop, adjust the quality settings, or adjust how your game works based on the current hardware parameters that you're working on. Right. So an example here is you can handle the performance degradation with the adaptive performance API on script itself. So you can see that if you're getting in a lot of devices, when your device heats up, it actually starts to throttle the processing performance of your device just to save its battery life. So when that happens, like when the temperature actually reaches a certain threshold, you can actually change certain settings in your game. So what's happening here is that the game is actively changing the LOD bias based on your temperature level. So you can do that, and what that would happen is you basically reduce the complexity of your game just to adapt to the game. Just to adapt to the changes in your device, in your hardware, so that you can keep your the performance of your game at an optimal level, right? So it doesn't dip in frame rate as much. And here are some tools that you can use to actually streamline or speed up your mobile game development experience. One of services that Unity provides is something called Unity Cloud Build, and what this does is to allow you to automatically compile, deploy, and test your game really quickly without much hassle. Right? What this does is it helps you automate workflows, schedule concurrent builds, and distribute your game to teams. So if you've had the experience of building your game and testing it, you also have the experience of actually, if you're working with teammates, also distributing your game. That usually means maybe uploading it to a cloud drive somewhere, sharing the link, and then telling that teammate that, hey, you've uploaded it here. This is the link to go get it. That process of actually hitting that button and waiting for that build, that's still some attention time taken away from your developer. Right? When you hit build, you're having to sit there for maybe 10-20 minutes to wait for the build to be done. What Unity Cloud Build does is helps you automate that without having you lift a finger at all. And you can actually hook this to your Git repository or whatever version control that you're using, and have it respond to new commits that you push to your repository. So if it detects a new commit, it could just automatically schedule a compile, build it, and then distribute to your teams, and also notify your team when it's ready. So how Cloud Build works is that you just have to set it up in the Unity operates dashboard, and you can set a trigger, so something like maybe a commit change from your repository to trigger a build. And once that build is created, you can choose to have it deploy and notify specific teammates in your team. Another thing that you want to consider is also reducing the file size of your game, and you can see this in a lot of large games. A lot of large games do this, where when they have a new update for the game, sometimes if it's a small minor update or content change, you wouldn't have to update your game, right? Having to forcing your players to update your game presents a bit of a friction to playing your game, so you don't want that. So one way to get around that is to actually host some of the content of your game in a CDN, right, a content distribution network. And so Unity has a solution to that. It's called Cloud Content Delivery. And what this allows you to do is to build and release your game updates effortlessly, using addressables, the addressable system, and deliver your content through a content delivery network. And because it's on the cloud, right, it's distributed to various servers around the world. So it's distributed easily and quickly to the nearest server to your users easily. So you don't have to configure all that. And what's great about this is you can distribute your updates real time to your users anywhere without having to wait for another build review from your platform. You can integrate this with your addressable asset system. You can configure permissions amongst your teammates. It has integration with Cloud Build, and one great thing about it is that it's engine agnostic. So even if you don't use Unity, you can leverage the Unity CCD for delivering your content to anyone. In terms of monetization, we actually will have a monetization webinar happening on the 26th, so you probably want to join that if you're interested. So today I'm just going to give you a little small short overview of like what monetization is about. And on the 26th of November, if you sign up for the next webinar, what we're going to talk about is really more in depth about how you can integrate and how you can use the monetization features more effectively. So there's a lot of resources that we have on monetization. In fact, if you go to the Learn portal at learn.unity.com, we actually have a quick and easy getting started lesson or course that you can participate in. And that covers things like advertisement. We have an API that we have an SDK that lets you serve ads within your mobile game. They can be rewarded ads, AR ads, banner ads, or playable ads that you can play before you can play your actual game. There's also an SDK for in-app purchases. All right, so this is the Unity IAP. And it also provides you a codeless API if you're building your game without C# scripting, or maybe you're building it with visual scripting. There's a codeless API that you can use to integrate without having to type a single line of code. So we'll talk about publishing. So as I mentioned when we were talking about CDNs and Unity CCD, some platforms do have a download limit. All right, so refer to this as an over-the-air download limit. For iOS, over-the-air means downloading with your mobile data, right? Not on Wi-Fi. And on iOS, this is 200 megabytes before the app tells you, before the device tells you that gives the player a warning to download on Wi-Fi instead. Of course, they can bypass this by going to the device settings, but that's assuming that the user actually knows this. So this can actually reduce the install rate by 50%. So you want to avoid this as much as possible. So that really depends on the platform, and if you want to, you can also deliver like parts of the larger piece of content through like the CCD or CDN, so to avoid the size limit, so to say. So the platforms that you can engage with or publish your game in are as follows. You have the Apple App Store, you have the Google Play Store. These are the two big ones. And if you really want to get editorial featuring on any of these platforms, your game, of course, has to be great. That's number one all the time. It has to be reaching for that coveted 5-star rating, of course. But you should also consider implementing platform features such as the App Store's Game Center or Google Play Game Services, or GPGS, so that you leverage features like their leaderboards or their rewards, their achievement system, just to integrate with their environment, right? Their ecosystem. And you should always engage the editorial team at least 2 months in advance before you start to launch, because of course they need to be notified in advance so they can help you improve your game, and find a space to help you succeed with maybe with the featuring if they can. And of course you have to make sure your game is compliant with the rules of the platform. So things like the Android back button. So Android devices have a back button that lets you traverse in reverse in your UI. If you close your game, with the quit button, it has to be handled in a specific way, things like that. And of course, if you try to go into multitask mode or put your application out of focus, certain platforms require you to pause the game. And of course, if you're serving ads, make sure you are GDPR compliant and compliant with all the other regulations that are active at the time. So we know there are two big platforms, but there are hundreds or maybe thousands of other platforms out there that are not the Apple App Store or Google Play Store. And it is really impossible to kind of publish on all of them unless you're part of the Unity distribution portal. So at the Unity dashboard, Unity publishing dashboard, you actually have this feature or service called Unity Distribution Portal. What this is a single hub for almost all alternative Android app stores that are in China or that's not the Google Play Store, right? It eliminates the need to create different builds and handle different submissions for these app marketplaces. So if you imagine having to develop for hundreds of these, it's almost impossible for just a one or two-man team, right? So what you can do with this, because they're all Android devices or all Android stores, is you can build one build and have one metadata profile that helps you populate the listing and the details of each store automatically. Of course, it supports Android games. These are Android app stores. And based on the type of Unity version that you are using, you either get them from the asset store or from the package manager. So those versions are all listed there. So make sure you download the right one. And Unity Distribution Portal is fantastic because it serves up to 1.7 mobile gamers that are using alternative app stores. That's what's projected for 2023. That's $5 billion of revenue that will be generated in stores outside of China. Third-party apps marketplaces are growing faster than the Google Play Store, so you really want to leverage on that in the future. And as of right now, the Unity Distribution Portal already reaches 1 billion players from these stores. So 1 billion players is not a small number, right? Even compared to the two big app stores that we have. So on the right side, you can see these some of the examples of some stores that you could be publishing to other than the Google Play Store. And yeah, we will of course be diving deeper into the Unity distribution portal in an upcoming webinar, right? So this is happening on November 19th. There'll be an introduction to the UDP. We'll also talk about the integration of UDP. There'll be some hands-on code. There's a program called My Game Plan that'll help walk you through UDP itself. There's a sandbox testing environment, and of course it'll walk you through publishing to our partner stores. So you've launched your game. What next? So once you've launched your game, it's not the end of the road. You still have the opportunity to grow your game beyond the existing number of users that you have. So we have a service called Unity Acquire that lets you intelligently spend your marketing budget more effectively and precisely target the most valuable players at the right price point. So this is leveraging all the data that we have in Unity to actually reach the right audience that you want to bring into your game. So this is a practice called user acquisition, where you actually have to spend money to get users that will spend money in your game or watch the ads to generate revenue back to you. So there's a course on this. I suggest going through it if you're not familiar with user acquisition, marketing, or monetization. It covers a lot of important key terms and metrics that you need to understand to run a user acquisition campaign, right? So I recommend going into the learn.unity.com portal, the Learn portal, to check out how to grow your mobile game. In the same class, we also give you a monetization and UA strategy checklist, which you can use to kind of tick off the boxes of what you need to do to make sure your strategy is sound. We also have a growing your mobile game course glossary, and this basically covers a lot of key terms and weird little acronyms or abbreviations that you may not have known about, and this will kind of get you up to speed on what you need to know and the confusing terms that people use when talking about monetization and user acquisition. And of course, we also have Adjust, which gives you the ability to kind of track where your users are coming from or where your users were acquired. So Adjust is a very important user acquisition tool. It basically is an attribution tool that lets you track where the people are coming from when you join or download or play your game. All right, it lets you accurately compare campaign and network performances based on where the users are coming from, and uses mobile attribution analytics to improve and perfect your retargeting efforts. So what that means is really just when you run your campaign, you're able to understand where and how your users engage with your ad campaign and how they're actually funneling back into your game. And when you have that accurate data, you can use that to maybe adjust your marketing efforts from one channel to another that's more effective. And beyond that, you also need to look at expanding the appeal of your game, of course, and that means localizing your game into more languages. And data on this is that on launch day, if you're localized for more countries, right, your performance of your game would increase by a significant amount. 60% of mobile game revenue is usually outside of the US, so you don't want to miss out on that. Some of the key languages to localize for are the FIGS, CJK, and BR languages, and that stands for French, Italian, German, Spanish, Chinese, Japanese, Korean, Brazilian Portuguese, and Russian. For Chinese, of course, it's simplified Chinese. That basically means the whole of mainland China. So if you're planning to localize your game, we actually have a brand new localization package that's been out on the package manager for some time now, and this basically supports text in multiple languages or culture-specific assets such as audio or textures. So you don't only localize text, but you can also have different textures and audio files swapped in based on the current language that you're on. This is of course available on 2018.3 and later. There's a cool feature called pseudo localization, which lets you test how your project will adapt to different localization at an early stage. So it basically gives you like some form of gibberish that kind of populates your text, so you can have an understanding of how that would look like in future when you actually localize it. You can of course import and export localization data to various formats, even to Google Sheets, and that really helps you to get it out to a localization agency to help you translate these and really import them back into Unity. Pseudo localization is a feature in the localization package. Basically lets you test limited spaces, as some languages take up more space than others, some less than others. It lets you test font encoding and conversion issues and ensure your fonts support all the necessary special characters. It lets you test right to left text issues, and lets you even test non-localized art, things like such as textures that contain text. There's some important things that you need to look out for when localizing your game. You should find a third-party native speaker to properly proofread your translations. In my experience, I've had experiences where some of the localization agencies that we worked for kind of given us some shoddy translations, like they came from either Google Translate, or they maybe didn't understand the context that we gave them, so the translations actually came up quite awkward. So one tip that I found is that if you pass your localization into Google Translate and you have these kind of markups in your text, so in this example on the right, I have this wiggle command that kind of wiggles my text in game. If you pass that into Google Translate, it would actually add some additional spaces in your game, right? Unnecessary spaces. So you can actually use this to maybe kind of detect whether or not the person you're working with actually used plainly use Google Translate to deliver your text, which you could have just done yourself. So also be wary of string lengths and the amount of space in the text field, because some languages require a lot more letters or words to express the same idea. And also be wary of line breaking rules in East Asian languages, and you can't just break some characters away from others, as they would change the meaning of the sentence. One thing that you want to look out for is actually also to be able to communicate with your players or actually service your players when they have any issues. So when we were working on Warpods, of course, no game is perfect. We've had our run-ins with a lot of bugs in our game, and at the time we didn't have a lot of solutions to solve this. So a lot of it was like a lot of manual work, talking to the players one-on-one. So fortunately today we have a kind of verified solutions partner called Helpshift that allows you to create or integrate an in-app help experience for mobile games. And what Helpshift allows you to do is to actually automate issues, and it has a chatbot that actually speaks about 180 languages and more. And it's engine agnostic, so you can use it with other game engines besides Unity. It's also PC supported, but of course it's purposely built for mobile first. It has an in-app chat that feels native to the app. So what you see on the right side is it's very, it feels like home to the device that you're using. It captures the app context to help you resolve the issues faster. So things like what device the player is using, where they're at in the game, these things can be captured, and you don't have to ask the players about these details manually. You can also anticipate the intent of the player as they begin to search for the issues. So sometimes if they're looking for a maybe the game stopped working, it'll direct them to maybe a crash related problem. So even though they're not looking specifically for that thing, the game knows, or Helpshift knows that based on the number of searches for the particular topic, it's able to redirect them to a more relevant topic. All right, and ultimately this will increase your customer satisfaction score, reduce churn, and really improve your operational efficiency. Right, you don't have just reduce the number of devs that have to deal with customer issues. And lastly, we have Backtrace for Unity. This is basically a way for you to monitor, automate crash reports. All right, so you can monitor automated crash and exception captures from every client and generate a structured and searchable error report that your dev can sift through more efficiently. So you can automate and capture these errors and have them be deduplicated in the background, right? So you can incorporate the debug data into your existing workflow, and what that means is basically when there's an error kind of captured in Backtrace, you can have that be hooked into maybe a Jira task. It will create a task for you and assign the appropriate developer to take a look into. And because it has deduplication done on Backtrace, if the same error report is seen, it won't actually recreate that error in Backtrace, right? It will just deduplicate it and lump it up into that same error. It's also cross-platforms, so you can use it for mobile or even PC. And you can retain the dump files and metadata for longer term trend analysis to see like how your app is doing in the long term. Is it stable or trending towards a dangerous stability? And ultimately, if your game is doing great, you can try to approach the Unity game growth team, and this team is really focused on creating amazing experience for your players while helping to grow your game. So game growth is a program at Unity where we help you grow your game. It's a name. So the requirement to apply for game growth is to actually publish a live free-to-play game made with Unity, connect it to the Unity dashboard, submit your project and your advertising assets, and then install the game growth package to begin testing. So once you've done that, the Unity team at the Unity game growth team will actually review your game, and if it fits, we will partner up with you to optimize your live ops, your monetization strategies, and optimize your player lifecycle just to bring your game to the next level. So some of the other games that have leveraged this is Castle Fusion. They're based in Australia, and just a small team or 4 talented team members. And with game growth, they've managed to grow their idle clicker to over 1,600 daily active users, that's DAU, as well increasing downloads, chart rankings, and engagement. So the team at the Unity Game Growth has guided them to optimize various things like the ad placements, their AppStore listing, the keywords that they need to use, or the art assets that they use on the app stores. And of course, they're help balancing their game economy with all the other tools that we've been talking about the past hour. Clone Armies is another one by L-Cube. It's a game that combines tactical strategy with pure shooting action as you lead your clones clones of soldiers to victories. So they've teamed up with the Game Growth team to optimize their app placements, A/B testing, and data pipelines, and the result was a 35% increase in day 7 lifetime values without compromising on the player experience. So that is it for today. That's a lot to cover, but we hope to eventually down the road in future webinars cover all of these topics in greater detail. So we should have enough time for some Q&A. So let's take some questions.
I think quite a few of the Q&A were answered live throughout the chat via text. So if you have any questions you might be thinking of, they may be answered already. We've got a new one coming through. Work on embedded C# scripts. We actually did a 2-week webinar on this last week and the week before. If you reach out to the team on the email from ANZSEA, which is in the chat window where all the links are, just reach out to us. We can direct you on how to find that content. And soon all of our webinars will be available will be available on demand coming in November, all the ones we've done this year. So going all the way back to the start, which is the introduction to the Unity editor, and also the link that Sean has just placed into the chat window, which is learn.unity.com. Great place to start if you're looking at a beginner level. And if there's no other questions today, thank you very much for joining us. Just a reminder, register for next week's webinar if you haven't done so already. Maybe Sarah can pop that link in there in case it's not in there. But everyone should have got that via email, and just check our social media page. Stay tuned on our Facebook page, and you can also register from there. Thank you very much for attending, everybody. We'll catch you next week. Bye for now.